What's happening, Internet? This is Andrew, otherwise known as Druicious. I'm sitting down today. That's one thing that's different. It is cold as fuck outside, so I'm in my basement. I have my hat on. I'm told that makes me look like the Edge, and that is not my fault. We are here today with what is, I think, I can only describe it as a historic episode of Drew's Basement. Otherwise known as Stu's Garment, because we have a very special guest tonight, whatever time it is there. We are bringing to the table a very good trader and somebody I would consider a good friend, StacheOfSelleck. So we are going to talk today about some volume analysis. I'm popping right over here to Stache's screen. And Stache, are you able to hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you loud and clear, buddy.
All right, man. So, Stache and I have been talking for a while about doing this episode, and we finally made good. So, Stache, I know you got looks like you got Spy up here on the screen. So, I think the reason we had on one of the morning calls on one of the Discords that we're in. We kind of started talking a little bit about volume analysis. Some folks were asking some questions, and we promised that we would do a video about it, and that took like 2 months. So sorry, anybody that was waiting for this, but here we are. I think both Stache and I look at volume quite a bit. I think it's actually, when you talk with any trader that's been around for a while, there are really only two things that are at the very top of the list of importance. It's volume and price action. And so, but we were kind of talking before the video here a little bit earlier. And Stache, I was telling you earlier that, it took me a long time to actually, I heard people talking about volume, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so, I didn't actually use volume as an input for quite a while. Was that something that you started on right away, or did it take you a while to get there too?
It took me a very long time to get there. It took me a very long time to get there and to really be effective at it. It was something that I was looking at, and I'm like, yeah, volume's doing the thing, and I was using that as a form of confirmation without understanding what I was actually seeing, and I would stop out or hold into deep red because I was an idiot new trader, but yeah, it took quite a while before I was like, oh no, let's invest some time in figuring out what's going on here and looking at charts and just trying correlations between what happens on chart patterns and volume.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that's a reasonable maturity progression, right? You start with a little bit of information, you figure out where to, cram in new bits of information. So when you look at volume, if you were trying to give somebody an elevator pitch on why they should care about volume or what they should look for with volume, do you have kind of an easy sort of hey, this is why volume is important?
Yes. So when I talk about what to look for when I'm talking about volume, I talk about look for huge amounts of volume along a major trend line. And when I talk about what that means, I talk about that as that it's a battle at a trend to potentially flip it. And so whoever wins that gets to run with the flag.
Yeah. Do you? And I know you and I both. I maybe I shouldn't say that. I know one of the indicators I use, kind of shows the buy sell pressure inside of volume. I think you use a similar thing. I'm looking at your screen here, and it's really either it's a red volume candle or it's volume. Not. Oh, you use OB. That's right. Yeah, you were actually the one that showed me OBV back some time ago. So is that so? You don't look so much at the buy sell pressure inside of any given candle, but you continue to use OBV to kind of help tell that story about candle to candle. Are we accumulating or are we accelerating or decelerating into a move?
I track it less now because I've gotten so OBV was kind of the thing that got me started looking at volume and it started to give me my first kind of basic understanding of what was happening, because I was watching volume happen on the main chart, and then watching volume how it compared down here, and then trying to figure out what that would tell me about breaking of patterns, like breakouts and patterns and stuff. And so now I kind of keep a loose eye on what's going on OBV, but for the most part, I just pay attention to what's happening with price action trend and real time volume.
Yep. So when you're looking at, I don't know, a chart, right? And it can be any timeline, right? Right now we're looking at I think the daily, right?
It's
Yeah,
the
you got the
daily.
daily up. So, you know, we can, you know, clearly at the bottom here you can see that there are some days that have more than others, right? You can see that there are trends within the volume as well. You know, and it's pretty common for the higher volume days to, you know, to coincide where there's activity, more participation both from buyers and sellers, right? Like if it's one sided, you're not going to get a ton of volume. But that's sort of like, I do think, even though anybody, you know, people will say, you know, hey, price analysis or, you know, technical analysis works on any time frame. I do find myself, and I don't know if you find yourself thinking a little bit differently about like the significance of the volume bar on the daily versus like when I'm looking for intraday trades, right? Because I know you go all the way down to the minute, and you're marking levels on where significant volume spikes show up on very, very small time frames, which
Mhm.
is, I don't know, like, do you think that way about the daily as well, or do you think less that way about the daily?
Generally, so what I find is when I drill way down into like the 1 minute time frame and I mark massive volume, small range kind of doji-ish candle, doji family candle, um, when I zoom back out, it falls within either the high, like right around the high, low, open, or close of that high volume days candle or that high volume weeks candle. And so that's enough to tell me the story about what's going on in that day.
Do you have, like, can you think of a day recently where you could kind of walk
I
your way
mean,
through a narrative on?
I can do it on a longer time frame because it's easier to find one like that,
Yeah.
but that's a massive amount of volume right there. So, what day is this in?
Yeah,
November
what was that
30th?
close?
I don't know. That was November 30th. It was some sort of low of some sort. Um, so let's see here. Let's look at that actually on the 1 minute and see if we can get a better eye of it. Oh, it was like right at the close. So I don't generally count volume that happens right at open and close because that
Totally skews the
you
day.
get large, yeah, you get big volume spikes. Although here, this looks like it might be an interesting seal. So just looking at kind of the volume around this area, this is midday volume, and it was
That was a
a
huge day
significant
by
amount of
comparison.
volume,
Right.
right? So you could look at a candle like that, and I would start from something like there, it down into it. And it's not a huge range candle, which I like that. I prefer to have a narrower range candle for this sort of thing. But then I just mark stuff. So mark the high and mark the low. Did that opposite of what I just did, but it's fine. I'll mark the open and the close. Generally, I just kind of mark the open and close, but I'm trying to be more to illustrate more from one candle here, so hopefully it'll work out for us. But then you can go out, so take that back out onto a daily candles. And so we defined what is the support area for this entire thing, as well as the resistance area for this entire thing.
What
And that was based on one candle on November 30th
I lost
on the
track of which
1 minute.
lines. Are those the kind of lower dotted lines there? Is that what we're looking at?
So these, yeah, these
Those two
dots
right there.
here
Yep,
are
yep.
so that's the low and there's no possible way. See, where are the lines? Give me them back. 30.
That seems like a really wide range for
I agree.
such a
Off
tiny
of
candle.
1 minute, I don't believe that. We're going back. Number 30. Yeah, that marked way too much. No, that was the range of that candle.
Really? Huh. Oh,
That
I
that was
guess
a data candle.
that was a what candle?
That had to have been data or something. It was at
Oh,
10,
yeah.
10 o'clock in the morning.
I mean, 10 o'clock is like,
That was FOMC.
yeah, yeah. That which would explain all the massive amount of volume there afterwards,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But nonetheless, the fact still remains that even that candle, all of that volume kept inside of that consolidation range.
Right.
And so let's not look at that because that was definitely a cheat candle. That was not intentional.
Haha, viewer. Gotcha.
We'll close that.
I mean, and it's a little tough too, right? Because I mean, especially when doing some of the volume analysis, right? Like we're looking for, like I won't speak for you, but like I'm definitely very like visually oriented. So my eyes are scanning, looking for things that stick out, and clearly an FOMC day is going to stick out, right? There's a ton of it there,
Right.
and like even more than usual because it's very quiet before the event and then very loud after the event.
Right. Right.
So in some ways, right, when we're kind of like going through on the daily looking for stuff, like clearly this is going to stick out. But I do think the point is still, hey, this level matters, right? Because this is where the volume showed up. So and when right, because you and I have talked before about, look, all of these levels are it's like an apartment building, right? There's a bunch of people on each of these floors, and some floors have more people than others. And so
that volume worked out pretty well. Sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you there, but
yeah, look at that level. So there it acted as support on several, because you're back over on the daily, yeah. So you can see that, and that's what happens, right? When you get those level, there's a bunch of people on that building, and when the price comes down, people are like, nope, still here.
Yep. And
Like,
so the way that plays out then is there are a few different things that you can do off of that, but the easiest and most obvious one that we're looking at here is wait until you revisit a high volume area.
right.
And then you can make a nice safe entry in either direction with a close risk, and patience pays in those cases, because here you would have gotten a few very nice bounces out of this. Like this was a lot. So
Yeah, it showed up. It showed up in the future too, and some of that can be because after you establish, right, like from a supply and demand or support and resistance perspective, right, like after you've established like an actionable level, it is more likely to show up again in the future, right? Because people see that there's like, oh, hey, a bounce there before. So it becomes more likely to bounce again in the future. One thing that I thought was a little bit interesting, I'm actually kind of curious on your thoughts on it, was that view you were in before, the volume profile, and I think we should actually talk about the volume profile as an indicator here a little bit in this conversation, but the volume profile there over on the right was actually, that level was actually at one of the lower points in the volume profile indicator, which I found
it back real far or what?
Well, I don't know. Just on the view that when you were kind of zoomed in before, because I think, and I'm losing track. Yeah, there's the levels like, so like there, it's clearly that level is near the top, and so
it's large. But, okay, like here.
And it's probably and maybe worth like stopping real quick just to talk about the volume profile. So for anybody that's not familiar, on the right hand of Stache's screen there, and I'm not going to try to name what colors those are. I'm going to say orange and blue, maybe green and blue, might be purple and orange. I don't know. Those colored things on the right hand side, that's a volume profile indicator, and it's a way of marking where on the price chart the majority of volume occurs. And like, I don't know if you think about it differently, Stache, but like the way that I think about it, it's areas where buyers and sellers are more interested in debating. Right, like it shows where the higher levels of disagreement occur. So higher peaks indicate areas where we spent more time uh, trading back and forth or consolidating, and valleys in that mountain indicate places that we may pass through fairly quickly because there's not a lot of people that want to talk. They just want to get to the next interesting level. So I like that. Do you think of that? Do you think of the volume profiles differently than that, Stache?
Nope. I see
Okay.
it exactly the same thing, and everything in between is a valley. So
Yep. So like, so I use the volume profile on the regular. I like TradingView's version of it way better than Thinkorswim's. I spent a lot of time, like an embarrassing amount of time, searching the internet trying to find ways to make Thinkorswim behave like TradingView, but and I've gotten closer. But yeah, I definitely prefer this vision because this one, I think the one you have adjusts automatically as soon as you like zoom into a thing. It's like, oh, cool, you're looking at this.
yeah,
Here's what happened,
yeah. That's
which
why
I
I kept
love.
switching around on us like this.
Yep. Okay, so I just wanted to spend a minute kind of talking about volume profile, and I think like right there, that view, those dotted lines where you had identified that high volume profile, that is what would be considered the point of control. So in the volume profile indicator, there's a thing called the point of control, and that's essentially the point on, or the price level on the chart where the most amount of volume has occurred. And so this is a perfect indication of that. Like, hey, there's those dotted lines where there was a big volume, and chicken and egg. I have no idea, right? Was that price level interesting beforehand, and that's what made the volume happen, or did the fact that that volume occurred there make that price level interesting to other people? Like, I have no idea which one came first, but look, there's millions of traders out there, and bots and all that kind of stuff, and they're all looking for patterns too. So like when they see that pattern before, or when they see a pattern there, they see a bounce somewhere, that becomes an interesting level to many people. So I think it's great that that's where that level that you identified showed up, right at the point of control here.
Yeah.
Here.
I mean, that's what creates the point of control, is that the volume is there, right?
Right. And it continues to show up, right? Because I think, because there was another view, and we don't have to go find it, it doesn't matter, but like there was another view where that level hadn't yet become interesting, right? Or like in that particular spot, like, hey, it wasn't a high volume node from the volume profiles perspective yet. But, and kind of back to the chicken egg thing, well, it bounced there a couple times, and so that level then became interesting. So that means that there's more discussion going on between buyers and sellers there, right? Sellers are trying to sell off. Buyers are like, no, this is a good price. I'll take it. And then it goes the other direction.
Right.
And look at that one there. It's plain as day on that view. Because how far back you go in there? That's on the 15-minute back to
October.
Yeah, middle October.
But this only goes up to, well, no, it's close to now.
Okay. But I mean, so like if you look at that volume profile, it is plain as day where the majority, and you can see it even in the chart, right? Like that band, where the highest peak on that right-hand indicator, like the price is dancing all over it, right? It's bouncing off of that space. And I think that's like, I love that, right? It helps really identify areas that are going to be tough to go through either way because of the amount of discussion, right? Which means it's a very strong support level, and a lot of times the price is actually drawn to that level.
Yep,
that's the way I think of it.
I sometimes can identify those areas early. So if I go into this, yeah, you're looking at this chart now. I've got, where is it? Volume weeks. So this view here. Sorry, I know it's a lot, but
I mean, you've not even yet begun to turn on your lines.
Yeah. So this is volume as defined on the weekly chart, going all the way back to the crash in 2020. So all the way back to the COVID crash. So the highs and lows of every anomalous volume candle, and the way that plays out then when you go into smaller time frames. So like those are all largely, like you saw where those all started and ended. So I'll go back here. So these candles pretty much all came from the ride up.
Yep.
Like that's where all of these lines began. And then on the way down, they all became significant lines again. So you see the way that we fall through these areas pretty readily.
Yep.
And then here we got into an area where there's significant volume. I can trade off of just this.
Yeah, just the fact that there's, and you can see it right there, right? Like it's super, and I'm pointing like people can see me, they can't. Like it's like talking to a movie.
Here.
But yeah, right there, right there's no activity between those. But that's like when I, and for anybody that like when we're talking during the day, right? When I talk about like hills and valleys or whatever, there's a hill, there's a peak right there, right in your dotted lines, and you can see there's a lot of volume coming in that aligns with that. But then there's no lines in the valley, right? And what happens in the way that I read that is that you're going to move through the valleys fairly quickly, right? So if you get to those valleys, if you get through the level of the peak, you're going to move quickly to the next peak. That's what the price wants to do. It wants to go to the next interesting level. And I think this is cool. I don't think you've ever actually showed me this view before.
Yeah,
of those.
it's powerful.
Yeah, that's great.
It does some amazing stuff.
So
And I mean, it's the same thing. A few folks know the way that the way that I do my charting, the density of lines conveys a lot of information to me. And so when I see like we're breaking through a high density of lines here on increasing volume, those are the kinds of confirmation I look for, especially when it's coming off of a trend line. So
yeah,
sell off into a trend line, surge of volume, don't lose the trend line, make a move up on increasing volume, like, because you get a little consolidating volume, decreasing volume consolidates, and then increase in volume and price moves up, break above your previous high volume area, and you know that that's your confirmation of a breakout. Ride that into your next high volume area, which is just what you got through here. Kind of consolidate, boom, pop through there, ride that right up into your next high volume area, which is this line here.
yeah, and look how cleanly it's like it rattles around up there near that the high volume node or the point of control in that particular view, and then when it decides to leave that area, it goes very quickly back down to the previous high volume node.
Yep.
Right.
Chop around there.
Yep. It wants to spend no time in between, and that like so when you're coming up with trade plans, that is a massive advantage, right? Like, hey, if we're gonna cross this canyon, it's going to happen quickly, right? We're not going to get stuck chopping around in here. We're going to quickly try to get to this other side of things. So I think those patterns are super powerful.
Yeah, it maximizes the probability that you get the play that you're looking for if you understand how volume is playing within that pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your I know this is like a kind of like an interview 101 type of question, but like, do you have a preferred time frame? Like, I know that I think you and I probably both tend towards the 1 minute as the like what's happening right this minute. I mean, would you say that that's kind of the first one you want to see when you're looking at stuff? I know you do your screening kind of the other direction, but like when you're sitting there during the day.
If I'm looking for a day trade, yeah, I do pretty much everything off of the 1 minute.
Do you find that less stressful now than you did when when you were newer to the 1 minute? Or
I mean, I think I got into the 1 minute before I really fully grasped what I was doing anyway. So that I kind of cut my teeth on the 1 minute, I think is A, why I traded, but B, it allowed me a lot more kind of control over my entries and exits. And I might feel that way if I learned on the 5 minute or the 15 too. I don't know, but at the end of the day, I use it because I use it. I like it a lot. I feel like it gives me a lot of control on my entries and exits.
sure. Yeah, I definitely feel like I get better entries and exits there. I know it stresses some people out, but I also I think one of the and I did a video on this a while ago, but like I've got generally like at least 4 timelines up or 4 time frames up when I'm trading, because if I sit and stare at the 1 minute, I will get consumed into the 1 minute universe and I lose track of what's going on in the bigger time frame. So I've gotten to the point where I need to like, hey, I need to know what's happening on like the 15 minute and the hour, the 4 hour, whatever, in order to make sure that I don't, don't get sucked into like, oh my God, there's a knife. It was a 15-cent knife. It was the end of the world as we know it.
That's part of what's really nice about having things like volume already charted,
Right.
because then like if you get a rapid move in some direction and you're up a couple of volume areas from your entry and you get a rapid move and it's like, well, I just caught back in this other volume area. That's not a big deal. Let's move my stop up and keep it chugging.
Yeah. When I like, it's all about context, right? Like you just have to be able to like get your bearings without
Yeah,
getting sucked into like one particular microcosm, right?
yeah. But I think
Um,
also part of being confident on the 1 minute comes with being confident in reading volume in real time,
that's fair.
and
I mean,
like
yeah.
having an intimate understanding of how volume has traded on that chart in the past.
And I think that's actually where we when we were talking on the call that led to us making this video. I think we started getting into like some volume spread analysis and talking about some of that stuff and about how to like read the tea leaves about like, hey, what happens when there's a big volume move but not a big price move, right? Like those divergences, and there are entire books, many entire books, maybe as far as I know, entire libraries written on all of these subjects. So like I'm not going to stand here and like pretend to be an expert more than somebody who is like an author, but but the idea that when we look at this, like I think this is a great view for it. When we
Yeah.
see a high volume move on a wide candle, that makes sense, right? Like we expect a lot of I think you just hovering over a bunch of these, right? When we look at any
Hmm.
of those high volume ones, like those tend to be high spread candles. But when we see, and I don't know that there's any good examples here of
These are decent.
like I think actually, which one,
Not
what's a great
great.
example? If you go back, the highest volume in that view right there, it's a yep, that one right there. There's a great example of it's a smaller spread, right? Like that, the spread of that candle is similar to the spread of the candle before it, but the volume's way bigger. So that's a divergence, right? So if like from a volume spread analysis perspective, that would say, hey, I would have expected this candle to have had a bigger spread or a wider body. And if you look at what happens after that, well, it reverses, right? Because everything up until that point was, the spread and the volume were consistent. But as soon as there was a divergence between the volume and the spread, then suddenly the direction changed. And that's not really all that uncommon. And you can see there's some other examples there, like the next big high volume there, like that one, that is a huge spread and a big volume. And so that may have telegraphed that maybe would have said like, hey, we're going to continue. It didn't. It went the other direction. But those are some of the things that I look for now that I didn't when I was a bit of a younger trader. Like, hey, what is the story between what the volume is doing, right? Because this is like, and if we were looking at the buy sell pressure volume indicator, right, it would show us within that candle, because I'm not sure, is that 50% buyers and 50% sellers in that?
Right.
Maybe.
What
The
do we
wicks
usually
tell a
see?
little bit of that story, right? Like we can infer some of that from the wicks, but when there's a huge body like that, we don't actually know. Um, because the wicks tell a little bit of the story about who's winning, who's gaining more ground. I don't want to say who's winning the war. I think it's more about who's gaining ground or who's defining whether something is or is not valuable. Happens in the wicks, but when the wicks can't tell you a story, that the buy sell pressure stuff can be really interesting to find out. Like, hey, are buyers showing up here because there are a lot of people that think that this is a value at this price, or are the sellers showing up because there's a lot of people that think that it's we're on the way down? Somebody's chasing somebody, right? That's the only reason that price moves.
Kobe View is really interesting on that move because it didn't match the sell-off volume.
So going through, yeah, interesting. Because and yeah, so just quick explanation on OBV for anybody that hasn't played with that before. It essentially is it goes down. It essentially counts the direction of the volume, the aggregate direction of the volume. So on a red day, OBV will add the volume to the downside, and on a green day, it will add to the upside. Um, but it essentially attempts to tell you the story about what's happening from the price according to the volume. And so divergences there can be really helpful. And I think you've spent more time. Clearly you have, because you still have it on your chart, and I don't have that on my standard chart anymore. I think I still have it on like Webull, but I mean, because I think you are looking for divergencies there in the
Yeah.
OBV as well, right? Like you want to
Yeah.
see where OBV says, "Now this looks like we're heading down," but the price is like, but doesn't it look like I'm going up?"
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Or look for points where OBV says we're going up, but your price is consolidating. Those are always really interesting for like high velocity kind of breakouts.
What go through that? I'm actually I don't know that I've heard you describe that before.
So when you're looking at it in real time, there's a point where we could probably do a replay. Let me see. I need it on like a 1 minute though. Um, I haven't used this function in a very long time. I don't want to edit it. I want to, yeah, go back. Sure.
Can you erase time? Is this like
Yeah,
a time cop type of thing? That's amazing.
it's happening.
I have no idea what's going on.
I'm just getting us lined up so we can watch it. We'll just go like bar at a time. So you see that it moves. I pointed at it with my hand, like you could see me through
See,
druids.
it's really addictive. Pointing,
Yeah.
gesticulating.
So hold on, I'll let it kind of play through. You see how this line it kind of whips up and down. This is on a 1 minute. This shouldn't be going this fast, but like it won't play. Can I slow it down significantly?
Oh, sure you can.
Yeah, let's go. So this line kind of wicks around, and if you're getting to a point where your price is consolidating, but like this peak is getting higher. So like here was kind of it. Let me go back a little bit, see if we can get that in close real time. So your price is kind of consolidating here. Haven't gotten a breakout peak yet. There, your price breaks above it right there. And then you still kind of consolidate, but you're maintaining above this line. So those kind of things you can watch for to pull back into this area and then for a breakout. I don't know if that's what we're about to get right here. Like I didn't really look that closely, but that's kind of what I look for is if we pull back into here, then I look for a breakout on that. Are we about to sell off really hard? We got a surge of volume that
Yeah, definitely like a big surge of
kept
sellers
the
there.
low there, and then we break out. Oh, it's still looking kind of. Oh,
There
there's
it
an
goes.
wicket there. So,
Oof.
but yeah, you look for the breaks of those peaks and valley kind of areas.
And you could kind of see that coming, right? Like, because OBV is like, hey man, I'm going lower, and the price is
Yeah, as
like,
soon
no,
as
I'm still
OBV
hanging out.
dropped below,
Yep.
then
Because
it's
yeah,
like,
the
oh yeah,
price action, and
going down.
that's that divergence we were talking about earlier, right? Like,
Yep.
and you didn't hand pick this example, right? Like you just grabbed some time on here,
Yeah.
but the OVV is saying, hey, volume is telling a different story, and that's why that's kind of interesting, right? And the stacking of, right, essentially just says if it's a red candle, right? Like if I had more selling than buying in this particular session, I'm going to subtract from my line. I'm going to go lower. And and I think that's why it juxtaposes nicely with the volume spread analysis. Is that's essentially what VSA is looking for too, right? Like, hey, tell me when the price action's not doing what the volume is, because price can lie but volume can't, right? Like, that's kind of the bottom line with this. And I think that's also part of why you're really interested in, hey, I want to know very precisely on a chart where a lot of volume shows up, because volume is somebody entering the market with a very pronounced bias, right? Like, they have an intention. They're not there because they're guessing. They're there because they have a very high conviction about something going somewhere. And
They
our
want in
job is to figure out what.
aggressively and
Yep.
with size.
Yep.
So it's not like me and Drew decided that we really like this stonk. It's somebody that matters putting real money behind a position,
Yep.
and like that's what moves the market.
Yep. And if you look at that inverted hammer where, because we were looking at the OBV and it was kind of like, noodling around a little bit, but right there, that inverted hammer, right? The reason that OBV took a nosedive, even though the price didn't, was because of all that sell pressure that showed up, even though there was enough buy pressure to hold it up, right? So price action didn't telegraph that we were going anywhere, right? Like, I mean, an inverted hammer definitely, contains some sell signals, right? Because it tried to go up, got sold back down. But then the next candle on super low volume, right? And there's that VSA divergence again as well, right? There's big volume saying I'm going down, and the next candle is very small volume going, no, I'm really going up. Just kidding, right? I feel fine. I'm not dead yet. And then the volume shows up, right? Yeah, that's them testing that level to find out whether it'll hold weight or not. And then they just plunge through. And OBV told us that, right? We saw the divergence of OBV saying, nope, there's volume on its way down. And that is what you should be looking for is, hey, OBV says we're going down, but price action's not sure. And then we saw a big flush, right? And is that going to happen every time? Probably. I mean, absolutely not. It won't happen every time. Is that statistically significant and interesting? Well, it is by several ways of looking at the way that price action and volume action work.
And so post using OBV, like I was talking about, observing the trends and correlates between price action, volume, and OBV, what you're expecting to see is as this candle breaks above these high volume area here, that you get volume that further increases relative to the volume here.
Mm-hmm.
That would be later reflected. I mean, it's pretty rapid. OBV is pretty close to a real time indicator, but
you're only one session behind.
Yeah, exactly. So it'd be reflected really quickly here, but you could see that right here. As soon as this volume didn't exceed the volume back here, like Drew said, and we got the price action that moved up, we tried to test the trend line. That's going to fail. And so, then as soon as you lose this candle, you get out of that trade.
Yep. And it could have gone the other way, right? Like bulls could have showed up in that spot, and there could have been, had big volume showed up going the other way, had somebody showed up with a big bag of coins, right? Scrooge McDuck shows up with his pool of gold and wants to buy, then that volume would have gone the other direction. But that's not what happened, right? This is like somebody showed up with a lot of money and was willing to go chase all the buyers that were sitting there with sell signs in their windows and push the price down, right? They came and cleared all that out. And it's, I don't know, we're not going to go into bookmap here, but like, I don't know if you've ever looked at that, right? Where you can see where all the buyers and sellers are kind of lined up, right? Like, it's weird. It's like a marathon of people just sitting there with like cups of Gatorade hanging out. They're like, hey, I'm here if you want my Gatorade. But it's super fascinating because I think that the concept of, price will chase liquidity or volume will chase liquidity really appears to carry a lot, right? Is there's a ton of buyers over at that price. We're going to find our way how to go pick them up so that we can get their money and decide whether we're going to keep going or go down, right? But what's important to the market is that they go consume those people who are holding out their Gatorade cups. That's a terrible analogy. It's not the best one I've had today, but
it was interesting.
It was like, interesting. I'll take it. So I'm checking on our time here. I know that how far are we in? Yeah, we're like 40 minutes in. I feel like we had kind of talked before we started this thing that this is probably like we could go on for this for quite a while, and it's probably worthy of a multi-part thing. So, like, how do you feel about that? Are you good with doing a multi-part? Like, if you're gonna do, I think.
Yeah, I feel like the next part that we get into here is going to be kind of the volume trend analysis stuff,
Sure.
and that is a rabbit hole. So, unless your viewers want to sit in for like 3 hours additional YouTube, I think it's worth breaking this down,
Can we turn on like Pink Floyd's The Wall in the background?
right?
I hear it matches up perfectly. So no,
Yeah,
I
just
think
wait until they get the lines on. Oh man, the laser show begins.
no, I think that makes sense. So yeah, I guess I'll at this point, for anybody that's actually still tuned in, all three of you, if you guys want to hear another, we're all gonna wave to our friends from high school. Yeah, if y'all want to hear volume 2 here, throw a like on or put a comment in or hit me and Stache up in Discord and let us know that this is helpful. And we'll keep doing it. And if nobody says anything, we might do it anyway and just not record it to spite you fuckers. So
Yeah,
also a possibility.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did the first time.
We don't need you. Awesome. Well, hey, Stache, thanks a ton for coming by. I know I feel bad that it took us this long to do this. I know there were many competing priorities, but I believe that we deserve a pat on the back for our perseverity of making it happen.
Cookies.
And cookies. If I had cookies, I would totally have some. But all I've got is wine and other stuff.
That'll do.
All right, let me see here. I'm gonna go over here and start clicking buttons to wrap us up here. All right, y'all. Let us know if this is helpful, and if not, I don't know. We'll see you around. Smell you later. Something like that.
Awkward.
All right. Yeah, it's All right. Cheers, everybody. If you want some more information on volume analysis, I think I do have the volume pressure indicator that I was talking about on here for Thinkorswim is available on drewsbasement.com. Is Stache'sGarden.com a thing yet? I feel like we need to get you like a Stache's Garden site or something.
No, but I probably not a bad idea.
I mean, and then we can just collab on stewsgarment.com and we'll host all of our content there. Because we always riff when we're doing these things. Totally on board. So, I mean, look, man, I got $10 a year for this thing, whatever it is.
Nice.
All right, I'm going to do outro here, and then Stache, if you want to hang around, we can chat a little bit longer afterwards. You guys can't listen, so
we're going to talk about the secrets of volume.
Oh man, I have such incredible information to share with you, Stache. I am really excited not to share it with the internet.
I'm gonna be rich tomorrow.
Hell yeah! All right, man. Thanks for coming by. I will talk to you in a couple seconds. Stand by.
Sure.
All right, to the rest of you guys, bye.
I said,